Hi, I'm Stuart. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Thanks for viewing my video. In this video I'm going to give my disappointing books of 2024. I read 73 books in 2024. My disappointing books are those that didn't live up to my expectations. They're not necessarily even books that I didn't like. I ruled out any book that I rated 4 or above because even if I rated a book 4 stars that I expected to be 5 stars, it's hard for me to call a 4-star book disappointing. I'm giving these books in reverse order. The 5th book is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu, Mandanna. This is a book I rated 3.75 stars. I actually liked it a lot, but it wasn't quite what I was expecting. This story is set in England in modern times. Witches exist, but they're not known, and they like to keep it that way. Witches can't gather together for any length of time because the combined power of the witches that gather could make them detectable. There's a group of witches in England, they gather only every 3 months. One of the witches in this group starts a YouTube channel where she pretends to be a witch. Of course, she is actually a witch, but she's pretending on the YouTube channel. She's seen by this man who invites her to come to the house he and others live in to train three young witches that are living with them. And she goes there. I thought this book was going to be mainly about the heroine training the 3 young witches, but primarily it was about a grumpy sunshine romance between the heroine and one of the residents of the house, a librarian who is the grumpy one. And it was just a different focus than I was expecting. And the grumpy sunshine romance, although the time frame it took to develop made sense, it still seemed to drag a little bit for me. I kind of wanted them to acknowledge the romance sooner. So again, a book I liked a lot. It just wasn't quite what I expected. So the disappointment was very mild for this one. But this is my number 5 disappointing book. My number 4 book is The Paleontologist by Luke Dumas. This was a book I just happened to see at Barnes & Noble when I was there. It was on one of the tables toward the front of the store where they display books. I just picked it up. In this book, a paleontologist is recruited to go back to a museum in the town he grew up in to curate their exhibits. And when he was a kid, he and his sister were visiting this museum, and his sister disappeared, and no trace of her was ever found. He agrees to go back there. This museum, though, has fallen on really hard times. Financially, they're in a lot of trouble. There are hauntings taking place at this museum, and they're hauntings by dinosaurs. And that kind of concept was one that I thought would really appeal to me. And I did like the book. I rated 3.5 stars, but although I could sympathize with the hero, I didn't particularly like him that much. I didn't dislike him, I just didn't feel too much for him. And the book was thrilling. It was an enjoyable read. It was a good horror novel. But I just would have thought the concept of dinosaurs haunting a museum would be more thrilling to me than it actually was. My number 3 book is Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu. I rated this book 3.5 stars. This is a much lauded book, and deservedly so. But I don't know why I found it a little bit boring. There were a couple times I literally had trouble keeping my eyes open reading it. One of them was fairly late at night, so maybe that's understandable, but another was in the heart of the day, so that was kind of surprising. It's well written, it establishes a good Gothic atmosphere. For some reason, it just didn't really work for me. I do hope to read it again. In retrospect, I probably should have rated it 3 stars and 3.5. I think I was thinking about how lauded this book is. My enjoyment of this was probably a 3-star book. As I said, though, I do hope to read it again at some point. My number 2 book is Normal People by Sally Rooney. A much lauded book, a much lauded author. The first of Sally Rooney's books that I read. A lot of people take issue that she doesn't use quotation marks, so discussions can be a little hard to follow. I don't really have a problem with that. My big issue was I didn't like the 2 main characters. Connell and Marianne, I liked him less than her, but I don't like her all that much either. They both have a lot of issues. They both have their trauma they're dealing with. They both have problems they're dealing with. I can sympathize with that part of it, but I just didn't really like them that much. The other thing is that a lot of people think that the relationship between Connell and Marianne was this great romance, and I found it a toxic romance. I just didn't think it was a very good romance. So for those reasons, I didn't particularly like this book. Like Carmilla, that I should have rated, dropped from 3.5 to 3. This one I probably should drop to 3 also, from 3.5. And both those books, I guess, I was kind of thinking of how much lauded they are, and not really particularly my feeling about them. I may give Sally Rooney a chance at another point. She just released a book called Intermezzo, which is like Normal People. People are loving it. But I've heard, too, that people who don't like other Sally Rooney books might like this book. So maybe at some point I'll try Intermezzo. But Normal People didn't do it for me. And my number 1 most disappointing book is Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. This is the only book that I did kind of a rant in a video when I talked about it. Not the kind of level of rant most people do, but a rant for me anyway. I love the Twilight books. I love the Twilight movies. This book is a retelling of the Twilight book, the first book in the series. It's told by Edward's perspective, and you're in his brain, and it's not a very nice place to be. He does not like himself that much. He castigates himself all the time. He's very self-loathing. And the other thing is that I think this book is just too long. It's a little over 600 pages, and to me, it could be cut down a lot. Cut down maybe 200, maybe 300 pages. There's just a lot of talk and a lot of thinking by Edward. And this was my most disappointing book by far, just because I love the Twilight series. I love that book. The one thing I'm not sure about is that if a person read this book without reading the Twilight series or knowing anything about it, and that's going to be a very rare person, if they did, this book would hit them in a different way, because you wouldn't realize that Edward's going to turn out to be in, a couple with Bella. You would really be scared of him. But since I knew that wasn't the case, there was no tension. You know what's going to happen. It's just seeing it from Edward's perspective. I did have the physical book. I donated it to the library. I do have one other Stephenie Meyer book to read. It's a short one, The Short Life of Bree Turner, I think is the name of it. I will read that book, but I'm not sure that if she does any more retellings like this, and I have no idea what her plans are. I don't think I've seen that Stephenie Meyer has published a book in quite some time. This might be the last one, but I'm not sure of that. I've kind of lost touch with what she's doing. And certainly any of these books, the first 4, I can definitely see why people would like them a lot. As I said, the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, I liked a lot too. It just wasn't quite what I expected. I'm not sure that I consider Midnight Sun a good book, actually. At least not the way it was published. Bloated. But if you like that, I'm happy for you. I wish I did. I've never picked up a book that I thought I wouldn't like. And it doesn't happen too much, but this was an example where it did happen. I guess I can say that really of all the books I read this year, maybe only Midnight Sun. I maybe would have preferred not reading it. It kind of doesn't really take away what I thought of Twilight, but it kind of casts a little bit of a stain on it, I suppose. Even Normal People, I'm glad I read it because much lauded author, so certainly should give things a try. So that's pretty good out of 72. That's pretty good out of 73 books. Really only one that I maybe would have preferred not to have read. I'd be interested in hearing what your most disappointing books were. Please reply in the comments, let me know if you like, or if you did a video about that. Put a link in the comments, I'll take a look at it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please subscribe, please hit the bell to get notified when I upload future videos. I hope you're having a wonderful reading week, and I hope you're having a wonderful week in general.